Can you hear me or see me now? All right. So we are in business. Unfortunately, the lovely background will have to wait till the recording. So we will dive in and go with the grin. It's St. Paddy's month anyway. There's no such thing for an Irishman as St. Patrick's Day. We claim the whole month. So I'm only kidding. Let me just go back over here to a question that I have. I want to make sure I get to for later. And I am almost there. Awesome. Okay, that is there. And then I just want to pull up my notes. Boom, good to go. Okay. So we are talking about what does it look like to live fully, right? Live, love, lead academy. Live fully. We know that the scriptures tell us in John 10:10 that Jesus has come to give us life in abundance, fullness of life. And he doesn't put a period there because he wants us to know that while that is his purpose, to come to give to us abundant life, fullness of life, he wants us to know that there's an enemy, there's opposition to that. And that enemy wants to kill, steal, and destroy anything that might give us fullness of life. So I have a question. I have a couple of questions that I want to throw out to you today. And if you're driving, or if you are watching the replay, or if you are here with us live, I want you to think of an answer. So I'm going to actually deliberately take a pause for a minute or two or I want to actually encourage you to pause the video or pause the audio and just listen to what might surface in you as you think about these few questions that I'm going to ask you. But here's the first one. The first one is this. What experiences, hobbies, or activities do you most crave? What experiences, activities, or hobbies do you most crave? So press pause right now. It's not a trick question. It's just a, hey, what are the activities? What are the hobbies? What are the experiences that you long for in your life? Press pause, have a think, see what surfaces, write it down, record it somehow, grab hold of it. All right, I'm going to assume that you did that, and maybe even that you've just captured that question. What activities, experiences, hobbies do you most crave for? You may have follow-up questions. What are you talking about? You're talking about my free time? You talk about just generally? I'm talking about generally, and I'm talking about your free time. All right, so just what are the things that come to your mind that you long for the most? A follow-up question, I'm going to just give you all three actually right now, okay? A follow-up question is, what things do you desire or have you desired that you know might destroy your life if you fulfill those desires and they got out of balance? What things do you desire or you have desired that you know might destroy your life when they get out of balance? So, for some people, it could be sex. For other people, it could be money, could be power, could be prestige, could be a substance of some kind. What things do you desire or have you desired that you know might destroy your life when out of balance? If you haven't accessed it yet, I really want to encourage you to listen to a talk that I have presented about appetites. Appetites. And it's not just about food, although let me tell you, food is in there. All right. Let me encourage you around having a listen to that talk. First question is, what experiences, hobbies, or activities do you most crave? For me, I love to play tennis. It is strange to me, but I know that other people speak the way I speak about tennis. They speak about other things. When I'm on that court, not all the time, but when I'm on that court and when I'm dialed in, when I'm in the zone, they say, or in the flow. If you're a surfer, which I'm not, Debbie and I were on a cruise and we were in Mexico, and you know the way sometimes like they have play things out in the public kind of arena or marina. They've toys for kids and just big floaties, you know, for whoever. I played on those, and then I came in and I was kind of feeling kind of brave, and I thought, you know what, I've never taken one of those surfboards out, and it was like a sad excuse for a surfboard. It was a little bit beat up, but man, let me tell you, when I'm pretty, you know, coordinated. Standing up on that board and staying standing, and it's a paddle board, but it was like probably a skinnier, cheaper version. It was really hard work. I was sore for days afterwards. Surfing, though, they call it the green room. Do you know those pictures where the wave is kind of like almost like a circle, and the surfer is like right in the middle of the wave? They call that the green room. That's the same when you're in that position. It's the same thing as when you're in flow. It's the same thing as when you're seeing the tennis ball like really well. Your timing is really well. Everything is just lining up, and it's like a golfer, you know, hitting a tee shot that's fantastic. His middle game is amazing, and his putting, his short game is also amazing. It's kind of like when everything is coming together for you. What experiences, what hobbies, what activities do you most crave? I would have to say tennis is one of those. And another one is I just love a good movie at times. I love a good movie. I love being intimate with my bride, obviously. Tennis, movies, intimacy, movies, intimacy. These were the thoughts that came to my mind for me. Out of control, desires that are out of control that you know could destroy your life if they got out of balance. I would say some people have made intimacy an idol, sex even as an idol. When folks come into us for intensives or just general counseling, but it gets more specific pretty quickly when they feel safe enough to kind of talk about what they're really here to talk about, which at times can be sexual addiction, pornography addiction. The belief shifts in people's minds that I have to have this, that when I have this, life is better. And actually, for some, life is fill in the blank. Pornography, sexual orgasm. And that's you know, that's obviously when it gets to an addictive place. So sex could be part of the answer here. Control could be part of the answer. Some people who know, like, hey, I am a self-confessed control freak, they would say. But until their belief changes, that pattern of behavior of control isn't going to change. We're talking about what does it look like to live fully, to live and walk in fullness that ultimately our maker, creator came to give to us. Well, in order to answer that question, we've got to kind of get under the surface and understand what is it that drives me? What is it that are the hobbies, experiences, you know, activities that I long for, right? You know, one of you are saying, I love a glass of wine, right? And again, you know, there are a lot of people who like to drink in moderation. And there are many, many others also who one isn't enough. Some of you are saying, spending time with my wife, going out into the countryside, when I'm working out, pushing myself to the max, being in the company of a few other good men in your men's group called Bando. Love that. Love the leader of that. Love the men in there. Love it. Yeah. Others are saying food. Yeah, it can be anything. It can be anything, right? Let me, before I share the third question with you, let me share this thought. God makes you desire. He is what you desire. God is the one that makes us desire, and he is actually ultimately what we're desiring. I read a phenomenal book. If you know any guys who struggle with pornography addiction, sexual addiction, phenomenal book called Surfing for God. Surfing for God. Because the idea is that behind all of the things that we're hungry for, ultimately is this hunger and this longing for intimacy and for connection with our Maker. Great book. Listen to what this other saint of old says about desire. You have made us for yourself, O God, and our heart is restless until it finds its rest in you. Our heart is restless until it finds its rest in you. Third question. Well, I'm gonna hold on to that for a little bit more. Let me share some thoughts with you from John 17, a couple of verses there. So powerful, these verses. We're familiar with them. Jesus' last prayer before he goes to heaven. He says, my prayer is not for them alone. I pray also for those who will believe in me through their message, that all may be one, Father. Just as you in me are in me and I'm in you, may they also be in us, so that the world may believe that you have sent me. I have given them the glory that you gave me, that they may be one, even as we are one, I in them and you in me, so that they may be brought to complete unity. Then the world will know that you sent me and have loved them even as you have loved me. And that last thought is what I want to give to you. That God loves you, my brother or my sister. God loves you as much as he loves Jesus. I mean, that's what this verse says, that the world will know that you've sent me, and not only that, but that you have loved them as you have loved me. Your Creator loves you as much as he loves Jesus. So many people think, no, listen to me. I know God only tolerates me. He barely puts up with me. No, this verse washes that away and says, false, lie, myth. He loves you as much as he loves Jesus. You need to let that sink in. You need to let that sink in. God is love. 1 John 4:16 says, God is love. Whoever lives in love lives in God, and God in them. This is how love is made complete among us, so that we will have confidence in the day of judgment. In this world, we're like Jesus. You ever think about that? You're like Jesus in this world. In fact, somebody has said, you're the only Jesus some people will ever experience. There's no fear in love. Perfect love drives out fear, because fear has to do with punishment. The one who fears is not made perfect in love. are not matured in love yet. We love because he first loved us. C.S. Lewis said this. C.S. Lewis said, we were made not primarily that we may love God, though we are made for that too, Lewis says, but that God may love us, that we may become objects in which the divine love may rest, well pleased. But that God may love us, this is why we were made, that we may become objects in which the divine love may rest, well pleased. So when we think about what it means to love, or what it means to live fully, I want to say that so much comes at us. For men, there are some things that are easier to kind of consume us, to engulf us, our jobs. Too many of us take our worth from our work. Your worth does not come from your work, whether you're a man or a woman. Your worth comes from whose you are. And through your work, you get to display your gifting, your talents, your experience, and the love of God, even through the services you provide, the job that you do, the products that you sell, the integrity in which you communicate, keep your word, show up. I mean, just show up anymore. If you just show up, you will have beaten over half. Just keep showing up. Just keep showing up. But listen to what Jesus says. Because I think whether it's our jobs, whether it's our family, whether it's our extended family, whether it's our kids, our grandkids, our neighbors, our workmates, there's a lot of things that come at us to hinder us from experiencing what this next challenge is. Listen to this. Remain in me as I also remain in you. No branch can bear fruit by itself. It must remain in the vine. This is from John 15, another very familiar passage. Neither can you bear fruit unless you remain in me. I'm the vine and you're the branches. If you remain in me and I in you, you'll bear much fruit, because apart from me, you can do nothing. And the reason why I want to read that to you is because that's one of our greatest challenges, just remaining in him, remaining as we're doing life in the day in and day out, in the interactions with people, in the alone times, in the together times. Remaining in him, listening to the people that you're communicating with almost like a third ear, or as if there was a third person in that conversation, because there always is, whether you can see them or not. That the Holy Spirit wants to speak his words of life through you to that person. What might that look like? And that when you're listening to another person, you're always listening with an open ear, saying, Father, what would you have me to say? I could go in many different directions. What are words of life? Because I've spoken way too many words of death. And that question isn't an analysis paralysis question. It's a discernment question. So he says that in the beginning of that chapter. But later on, at the end of that chapter, here's why. Here's why he says it. In verse number 9 of chapter 15 of John. He says, as the Father has loved me, so I have loved you. Now remain in my love. I've told you this so that my joy may be in you, and that your joy might be complete. My command is this: you love each other as I have loved you. Greater love has no man than this, to lay one's life down for one's friends. I have told you this so that my joy may be in you and your joy may be complete. I don't know about you, but that enemy that we talked about at the very beginning of this session, he doesn't want his joy to remain in you. He definitely doesn't want your joy to be complete. I just want to remind you that part of walking in fullness, how do you live fully? You live fully because you walk in the knowledge that you are loved as much as Jesus is loved. You are loved as much as Jesus is loved. And that his desire is that you would remain in that posture as you're doing life. That you would know you're loved and not lived in order to be loved. Love and live and lead from a place of being loved and sharing that love with other people, as opposed to trying to milk love, acceptance, worth, and security from everyone or every activity that you experience. Instead, they become complements to what is already yours. It's not a place that we're trying to get to, but it's a recognition of what already is true about you and about me. How do you live in fullness? You find ways to remind yourself that you're already loved as much as Jesus is. That you live in the awareness that you are in a battle. And 1 Peter 5:8 says, hey, be sober, man. Be alert, be on guard. Because your adversary walks around like a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour. That is not supposed to be scary. Someone has said he's a gummy lion. And all it takes is one or two or three brothers or sisters kind of getting together and having each other's backs in order for that lion to be kept at bay. So we've not been called to live life in isolation. That's why I loved one of you saying earlier that you enjoy it being in the company of other men, iron sharpening iron. Love that. I know women who tell me, I can't stand women's events, some women tell me, because there's just a lot of fakeness there, was their experience. My encouragement to you is then you be the authentic one there. You breathe that. If you've ever been in a study, in a conversation where there's a group of people and one person just gets very real, in an appropriate setting, I'm just very authentic, very real, it blows that conversation wide open, almost giving other people permission to be real as well and kind of let down their guards or take off their masks. Last week's intensive, an individual came longing for clarity. You take a couple of days, put your stuff on the table, allow other people to speak in, help guide and sort and remove the excess baggage. Her words on the far side of her intensive were just earlier this week, I have never had this level of clarity in my entire life. Wow. Wow. God is a God of order. The enemy is the author of confusion. Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there's freedom, 1 Corinthians 3:17 tells us. Walk in fullness of life this week, knowing you are his beloved. That there's nothing greater There's nothing greater for a child, for a biological child, than to know that they are loved and celebrated, championed, at times corrected, all from a place of love. So what I would like to do is I have a third question for you, but I also have a challenge. Whoops. I also have a challenge for you, and I want to share that with you here in just a second. Third question I want to give to you, and that is, how do you see your desires as both an evidence of God in your life and a deeper thirst for love? You know, I often find that having examples is helpful. And so how on earth could I use tennis to explain, you know, that's an evidence. My desire for tennis is an evidence of God and a deeper thirst for love. For tennis, I wrote, when, you know, a father wants his kids to enjoy their gifts and to have fun. 1 Timothy 6:17 says, challenge people in this world that they don't put their trust in their stuff, but that they put their trust in me, who has given them all things to enjoy. Wow. So on the tennis court, I enjoy it. And I talk to him even on the tennis court. I mean, we have a conversation. Well, you know, I talk to him on the tennis court. Sexual fulfillment. He's the creator of intimacy between the Father and the Son and the Holy Ghost. They say is a divine dance between the three of them. Sexual, physiological fulfillment is about connection. It's about intimacy. I do have a desire to control. And if not careful, it can get out of whack. So, where's God in that? Well, he's told us to subdue the earth. He's told us that he's a God of order. Ladies oftentimes tell me when their house is a mess, they feel all over the place. Not every lady, but a lot of ladies. Whereas the lads are like, what's the problem? It's fine. It's fine. It's grand. Would you sit down and relax? Tip, lads, get up and help her. It'd be much faster for you both to be sitting down and relaxing. I think movies are a way in my life, as I desire those, to experience good versus evil, and good triumphing over evil. And that a savior almost always comes to the rescue. Not always, but almost always comes to the rescue. I want you to think about how do you see your desires as both an evidence of God and a deeper thirst for love? So, I want to give you 3 challenges in walking forward in fullness of life. And the first challenge that I want to ask you to consider is what new habit are you going to add to your life this month? New habit. What new habit are you going to enjoy or add to your life this month? Because if we're not intentional about adding experiences to our life, hell's going to be very intentional about adding experiences to our life that steal and take life from us. So I want to challenge you with the first thought, which is a new habit that you're going to add to your life. And frankly, I would even encourage you to consider adding a new habit 12 times this year, or in the year between now and this time next year. That each day you do this habit every day, and then next month you create another habit. And then just make them part of your life, especially if they're life-giving. This is not about a legalistic, heavy chore, duty kind of a thing. But the second thing I want to encourage you to do is one activity every 2 months. One activity every 2 months that you wouldn't normally do, you wouldn't ordinarily do. I want to challenge you with one activity every 2 months that you intentionally will do that you wouldn't ordinarily do if you weren't, setting your intention that way. And the third challenge I have for you in walking in fullness is to put one monster or major thing in your calendar that is a motivator for everything else. Because sometimes we call that like like the game of dominoes. Like, what's the one domino action activity you could look forward to that kind of actually it makes the others fall, the other goals in your life, the other areas in your life. I remember when I ran a couple of marathons, I had to throw a lot at that time-wise for practice, but what it did for me was actually it spilled out into other areas and other arenas, and was that major thing on the calendar that motivated a lot of other things. One of you are saying, I've been blessed by my Father bringing my bride and me back together in a much deeper relationship than we've had in many years. You're a miracle in the making, and you're grateful to God every day. And your heart's desire is to build the kingdom with the gifts that He's given to you. Awesome. Love that, man. Love it. Love it. Maybe you can include your bride in some of these thoughts that you can continue on this journey together of creativity, of intentionality, and of living life in its fullness. And so that's where we are going to pause the coaching for today. But I have one other question that I have not answered before this session today. And so I want to get to it and just give some thoughts to it now I guess in direct contrast to the thought that was just shared right there. This is a toughie. This one's a toughie. And this question says, look, my marriage is in really bad shape, and I'm not even sure that my spouse wants to continue. I am seeing a local counselor. My relationship with the Lord is improving. I think my spouse wants to see change in me. but going through all of this brokenness in my marriage has broken me and helped me grow closer to God. But I just don't know what to do to show my spouse that I'm changing. I don't want to lose them. I feel like it's too late. So let me just pause right there. Whenever you hear somebody say, I feel like, that's you're about to get a belief. Because when you say, I feel like, and then listen to the thought that comes after, that's a belief that's coming. It's not an emotion. All right? So I feel like it's too late is actually a belief. It's not a feeling. And if you feel like it's too late, then you will be inclined to believe it's too late and not move forward, not move toward. So much damage has been done. Any thoughts would be appreciated. Well, all right, so one of our gang in the group is saying, look, that sounds like me 20 months ago. It's never too late, never give up. And I know who has made that comment, right? Who's saying it's never too late, it's never give up. They were living apart. And with all plans and for like ending everything. And things are better now than they've ever been. I have another guy who, they got divorced. They were divorced for 6 years. And one of the spouses actually married somebody else. And then got divorced from them and they came back and they both got remarried. And just a line of stories. In answer to your question, my encouragement would be that if you don't want it to end, then you have to pull out all the stops. Let there be no doubt in your spouse's mind that you are throwing the kitchen sink at saving your marriage and your family. If you have children, your children need you to throw the kitchen sink at demonstrating ways that send messages of love to them. Demonstrate practically messages of love to them. Love is, by definition, demonstrates self-sacrifice for the highest good of the one being loved. The highest good of the one being loved. So a lot of times, and whether, for male or female, a lot of times when brokenness happens, when bad things surface, we generally go to our corners and we're all about defending our rights and what we want and our way. What if saving your marriage might mean giving up the fight, giving in to whatever you were holding off, out on? Sometimes marriages are not saved, and it may not be because of you and your heart. It's because of your spouses. Let your testimony be one of love. Divorce, separation, one of the heaviest forms of rejection. Know that the actions of another do not define the identity of you. What does loving your spouse well look like practically? What does loving your kids look like practically? I'm glad you're seeing a counselor, because it sounds like clearly some stuff needs to be worked through. Health is seriously in need of increasing. And so I celebrate you for that. And I want to encourage you to continue to move in that direction. If your spouse does not receive you, I want to encourage your heart and simply remind you that your Father's still with you. He will get you through this. But like your brother said, it's never too late. Never give up. You are the only one who can make the decision for you. You are not It is not your responsibility to carry. I wrote a thought earlier. You are not responsible for what people do with what you declare. You are not responsible for what people do with what you declare. You are responsible for what you do and what you declare. And so on that, I want to say we got to wrap up for today. But if you have a question, email it to me at kevin@livelovelead.info. As always, I will answer those, within the time allotted for those response times, or I will answer those as we just did on the coaching call. I wish you Godspeed. Next week, we're going to talk about what does it look like to love deeply. And as you see, living fully, loving deeply, and leading authentically kind of overlap, and they bleed into one another, into whatever topic we're talking about. But in living in fullness, what we talked about today is just huge for that being experienced in your story. So I bless you, and I will look forward to seeing you next week. And if you can't see it, make sure you register for it so that you can get the recording and the replay. Take care, and we look forward to seeing you next time.